They ask him whatever they want, right? And nothing he says can be held against him in that proffer. Nothing. And this is what they call a snitch session.
YNW Bortland just dropped the most shocking details that would send his best friend Melly to prison forever. After 6 years of loyalty, he cracked and took a plea deal. What he revealed about that deadly night will destroy everything you thought you knew about this case. The shocking revelation that just destroyed YNW Melly. This is some real street politics that is shaking the entire hip-hop community. September 9th, 2025 will go down in history as the day YNW Bortland made the most controversial decision in recent rap history. A decision that could seal YNW Melly's fate forever. We're talking about a plea deal so explosive, so game-changing, that it's got the streets questioning what happens when keeping it real goes completely wrong. Here's the tea that's got everyone heated. YNW Bortland just accepted a plea deal literally one day before his murder trial was supposed to begin, completely dodging 2 first-degree murder charges that could have buried him under the jail for life. But this wasn't just about saving his own skin. This move has implications that could destroy his former best friend YNW Melly's chances of ever seeing freedom again. The streets are calling it the ultimate betrayal. Legal experts are calling it strategic. But what everyone agrees on is this: Bortland just changed the entire game, and Melly's defense team is probably having nightmares right about now.
They ask him whatever they want, right? And nothing he says can be held against him in that proffer. Nothing. And this is what they call a snitch session. He's taken a deal where he's getting, 10 years in, 6 years on probation. He's already got 7 in.
Let me break down exactly what went down in that Broward County courtroom. Cortland Henry, that's Bortland's government name, walked into that building facing some of the most serious charges you can catch in the state of Florida. We're talking about 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree, witness tampering in a capital felony, directing criminal gang activities, conspiracy to commit tampering, and unlawful use of a 2-way communication device. In hood terms, that's what we call football numbers, the type of time that'll have you watching your great-grandkids grow up through prison glass. But instead of rolling the dice with a jury trial, Bortland pleaded no contest to witness tampering, 2 counts of accessory to a capital felony, and unlawful use of a 2-way communication device. The prosecution, in exchange for this plea, agreed to drop those murder charges that would have had him spending eternity behind bars. The sentence he caught: 10 years in prison followed by 6 years of probation. Now here's where it gets interesting. With credit for time already served since his 2019 arrest, Bortland's looking at a potential release date of January 6, 2032. That's less than 7 years from now instead of dying in a Florida state penitentiary. In street mathematics, that's the difference between having a life and becoming a statistic. But here's the part that's got the culture absolutely buzzing with controversy. As part of this deal, Bortland is required to provide what's called a proffer, basically a detailed statement about everything he knows regarding the case. Now, his legal team keeps insisting that there's no expectation for him to cooperate against Melly, but folks who understand how the system really operates ain't buying that explanation.
And also, by the nature of the pleas that he's taken, accessory after the fact of murder, it helps the state. Why the fuck would the state drop 5 life sentences to just be like, oh, we just want this guy to go home? Come on.
This is where things get really deep and why this plea deal is being called a potential death blow to Melly's defense. For over 6 years, the prosecution has been building their case around the theory that both Melly and Bortland conspired to murder their crew members, Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr. and Anthony YNW Sackchaser Williams, back in October 2018. According to the state's narrative, Melly allegedly shot the victims inside a Jeep that Bortland was driving. Then they both worked together to stage the scene to look like a drive-by shooting, driving around with the bodies before eventually heading to the hospital. Now, with Bortland's plea deal essentially admitting he played a role as an accessory after the fact, the prosecution has something they didn't have before. Validation that their entire theory about this being a premeditated murder followed by a cover-up is legitimate. This isn't some random drive-by shooting like Bortland originally told police when he showed up at the hospital with 2 dead bodies. The timing of this decision was calculated to perfection. Bortland accepted this deal exactly 24 hours before jury selection was scheduled to begin for his trial. This wasn't a panic move or a last-minute decision. This was a strategic chess play made by someone who could read the writing on the wall and understood that his options had been reduced to terrible and worse. But let's talk about what makes this situation absolutely explosive for Melly's case. Bortland's attorney has emphasized that the no contest plea doesn't constitute an admission of guilt. But anybody who's been around the legal system knows that when you're facing life sentences and you take a deal that requires providing detailed information to prosecutors, the technical legal definitions don't don't matter to the streets or to the other side of the courtroom. The streets are calling this a Guna plea, referencing Sergio Kitchen's controversial decision in the Young Thug YSL case, where he took a similar deal that had the hip-hop community questioning his credibility and loyalty. It's the type of move that saves your physical freedom, but potentially destroys your reputation in the culture forever.
You take a plea, you saying we did it. Even though you're saying no contest, you snitching.
Even if he doesn't have to say, he doesn't have to testify, make a statement, that's still snitching.
To understand the full scope of what this means, we need to dive into the background of how we got here. The YNW collective originated in Gifford, Florida, where these young men grew up together in the same neighborhoods, sharing the same dreams and struggles that come with trying to make it out of poverty through music. Jamel Demons, YNW Melly, Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie, Anthony Williams, YNW Sack Chaser, and Cortland Henry, YNW Bortland, were childhood friends who built their careers as a unit. The incident that changed everything happened on October 26, 2018, after the crew left a recording studio in Fort Lauderdale. According to prosecutors, it started as a routine night of making music ended with two young men dead and their former friends facing murder charges that could result in the death penalty. But Bortland's plea deal doesn't just affect his own situation. It potentially destroys one of Melly's key defense strategies. From the beginning, Melly's legal team has maintained that their client wasn't involved in the murders and that the prosecution's theory was fundamentally flawed. Part of their strategy involved potentially pointing fingers at other possible suspects, which could have included Bortland himself. Now that option has been completely eliminated. With Bortland acknowledging his role as an accessory after the fact, the prosecution can point to his plea as evidence that their version of events is accurate. This gives them something they've been lacking: corroboration of their theory from someone who was actually present during the alleged crime. The street's explosive reaction. The moment news of Bortland's plea deal hit social media, the hip-hop community erupted into an absolute frenzy of debates, accusations, and heated discussions about what loyalty really means when you're staring down the barrel of multiple life sentences. The reaction was swift, brutal, and unforgiving, exactly what you'd expect when someone in the culture makes a move that's perceived as violating the sacred code of the streets. Within hours of the announcement, Bortland's name was trending across every platform, with users drawing comparisons to every other high-profile case where rappers chose cooperation over solidarity. The phrase "gonna plea" started dominating timelines, connecting his situation to Sergio Kitchen's controversial decision in the Young Thug YSL case that left the streets divided and questioning what keeping it real actually means in 2025. But the most significant reactions came from the people who matter most in this situation, the families who have been waiting over 6 years for justice. Anthony Morton, representing the Thomas family, expressed that the family liked the deal, stating, "At the end of the day, Mr. Henry knows what happened. He was in the car, but he wasn't the shooter." For these families, any step toward truth and accountability represents progress in a case that has dragged on for far too long. However, in the streets and throughout hip-hop culture, the response was entirely different. Being labeled a snitch in this community isn't just about losing credibility. It's about social death, career suicide, and potentially putting your physical safety at risk. It's a reputation that follows you forever, affecting everything from your ability to work with other artists to your standing in your own neighborhood.
My whole thing is, if you did it, take the plea. If you didn't do it, trial.
The controversy intensified when people started dissecting the specific requirements of Bortland's plea agreement. The most contentious aspect wasn't just that he took a deal, it was the proffer requirement that had everyone's attention. In street terms, a proffer is essentially a spill everything you know session where you sit down with prosecutors and their entire team to provide detailed information about what really happened.
A proffer is usually a session between the defendant and the U.S. attorneys or the district attorneys in this case. And what usually happens is that they call it, and this is the popular name for it, Queen for a Day. Usually a part of your plea deal, they want you, well, not all, like, well, plea is different, but in a proffer session, they're gonna allow you to tell them everything.
The psychological aspect of this situation cannot be understated. The criminal justice system is specifically designed to break people down mentally, creating scenarios where defendants feel forced to choose between loyalty to their crew and loyalty to themselves and their families. Bortland had been locked up since 2019, over 6 years of his young life spent in county jail, missing birthdays, funerals, family gatherings, and every milestone that defines a normal existence. But the streets weren't interested in psychological explanations or discussions about systemic pressure. They were focused on one fundamental question. Is Bortlen a snitch, or is he just a young man who made the best decision he could under impossible circumstances? The comparisons to other controversial cooperation cases became inevitable and relentless. People brought up Tekashi 6ix9ine's full cooperation with federal prosecutors, where he testified against former associates and helped secure multiple convictions. They mentioned Gunna's YSL plea deal, which many considered cooperation even though he never testified in court. Some reached back to older cases involving rappers who chose information over incarceration, creating a historical context that painted Bortlen's decision as part of a troubling pattern. What made Bortlen's situation particularly complex was how his team attempted to control the narrative after the news broke. Reports emerged that Bortlen had addressed the rumors in a freestyle shared on social media, denying that he took a deal that would harm his associates. In the track, he reportedly stated, "What the fuck I look like taking a deal that hurt my N**********, free me and Melly." But even with these damage control efforts, the court of public opinion had already rendered its verdict. In hip-hop culture, perception often becomes reality faster than facts can be established, and the perception was clear. Bortlen had chosen self-preservation over loyalty to his day one.
That's what the system do, man. They set them boys in there, them boys been there since what? Valentine's Day 2019, 2018 or something like that. Went to trial, you know what I'm saying, hung jury or whatever they had going on. Really, in reality, hung jury or whatever, they couldn't come up with a decision. Shorty them has some leeway.
The cultural implications of this case extend far beyond just these specific individuals. This represents a pattern that's becoming increasingly common in high-profile cases involving young black artists from the hood. From RICO prosecutions to gang allegations, the system appears designed to create situations where cooperation becomes the most rational choice, even when it violates fundamental principles of street loyalty and cultural identity. The controversy deepened when speculation began about what Bortlen's proffer might actually contain. While the specific details weren't made public, people familiar with the case started suggesting that it would likely include a comprehensive account of October 26, 2018, the night Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams lost their lives. This information could potentially demolish whatever defense strategy Melly's team had been developing over the past 6 years. The timing of this development in relation to Melly's own legal proceedings made everything even more dramatic and consequential. Melly's retrial has been postponed multiple times and is now scheduled for January 2027. This extended timeline gives the prosecution years to incorporate whatever information they obtain from Bortlen's proffer into their overall strategy and case presentation. The personal betrayal aspect of this situation adds layers of complexity that can't be ignored or minimized. These weren't just random co-defendants who happened to be charged together in the same case. Melly and Bortlen were genuine friends, part of the same crew, practically family members who had grown up together and built their dreams side by side. The YNW collective represented more than just a music group. It was a brotherhood forged in the struggles of Gifford, Florida, where young black men often face limited options for escaping poverty and violence. They had shared everything: successes, failures, studio sessions, performances, and the gradual climb toward potential fame and fortune. Now that bond has been irreparably shattered by legal pressures and life or death decisions, the cultural debate surrounding this case reflects broader tensions within hip-hop about authenticity, loyalty, and survival. On one side, you have purists who argue that street code should never be violated, regardless of the personal consequences. On the other side, you have pragmatists who understand that the system is designed to force these impossible choices and that survival sometimes requires difficult decisions. Game over for Melly? Now that the initial shock has settled and the legal implications are becoming clear, it's time to address the elephant in the room. Bortlen's plea deal might have just sealed YNW Melly's fate in the most devastating way possible. This isn't just about one man's decision to save himself. This is about a strategic move that could fundamentally alter the trajectory of one of hip-hop's most high-profile murder cases and send ripple effects throughout the entire culture. The legal ramifications of Bortlen's plea deal are absolutely catastrophic for Melly's defense strategy. By pleading no contest to accessory after the fact charges, Bortlen has essentially validated the prosecution's entire theory of the case. Legal experts are calling this development potentially devastating for Melly's defense team because it eliminates one of their primary arguments and provides the state with exactly what they needed to strengthen their case exponentially. Let me break down exactly why this changes everything for Melly's legal situation. From the very beginning, Melly's defense team has been maintaining that their client wasn't involved in the murders of Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams. They've argued that the prosecution prosecution's entire theory about this being a premeditated murder staged to look like a drive-by shooting was built on insufficient evidence and flawed reasoning. Part of their strategy potentially involved pointing fingers at other possible suspects, which could have included Bortland himself, but now that option has been completely eliminated from their playbook. With Bortland accepting a deal that acknowledges his role as an accessory after the fact, that entire defense strategy has been blown to pieces. The prosecution can now point to Bortland's plea as concrete proof that their version of events is accurate, that this was indeed a planned murder followed by an elaborate cover-up attempt, not some random act of street violence.
And state, is that the complete term? That's it?
He's also going to be giving proffer, Your Honor,
Proffer.
at a later time.
So what, is that part of the negotiated resolution?
It is.
Part of the negotiated resolution, you got to give a proffer.
The proffer requirement represents the most dangerous aspect of this entire situation for Melly's future. Even though Bortland's attorney continues to insist that the information provided cannot be used directly against Melly in court, anyone who understands how the criminal justice system actually operates knows that this explanation doesn't tell the complete story. Proffer information can be utilized in numerous ways to strengthen a prosecution's case, even when it cannot be presented directly as evidence during trial. For example, whatever details Bortland provides can guide the prosecution's investigation strategy, help them identify new witnesses, locate additional evidence, or develop more effective questioning approaches for existing witnesses. It can also be used to contradict Melly's testimony if he chooses to take the stand in his own defense. Beyond the technical legal implications, the psychological impact of knowing that your former best friend and co-defendant has provided detailed information about your case to the very prosecutors trying to put you away for life cannot be measured or quantified. Reports indicate that Melly requested new lawyers following Bortland's plea deal, suggesting that this development has significantly affected his confidence in his current legal representation and overall strategy. The physical transformation that Bortland has undergone since accepting his plea deal carries symbolic weight that extends beyond the practical aspects of prison life. When he was transferred to South Florida Reception Center to begin serving his sentence, Bortland had his dreadlocks cut off and his head shaved completely clean, standard procedure in some correctional facilities. This dramatic physical change represents how much everything has shifted in this case. The person who once stood alongside Melly as part of the YNW collective is now literally and figuratively a completely different person. The broader implications for hip-hop culture and the criminal justice system's treatment of young black men are equally profound and troubling. This case represents part of a disturbing pattern where young artists from underserved communities find themselves trapped in a system that often seems designed to ensure their failure, whether through cooperation, incarceration, or elimination.
And again, he's not really trying to put on evidence so much to show that he's innocent versus he's trying to put on evidence to create, reasonable doubt. Because he doesn't have to show that he's innocent. He just has to show that the case that the state has is not strong enough to carry the reasonable doubt burden.
This case has also highlighted the controversial and problematic practice of using rap lyrics as evidence in criminal proceedings, which has particular relevance to hip-hop culture and artistic expression. Prosecutors have been attempting to admit lyrics from over 55 of Melly's songs, including album covers and music videos, as evidence of guilt, motive, or gang affiliation. Melly's breakthrough hit Murder on My Mind, which was actually recorded and released before the murders occurred, has been especially scrutinized for its graphic and detailed depiction of violence. This practice of weaponizing rap lyrics in legal proceedings has been heavily criticized by legal scholars, civil rights advocates, and cultural critics, who argue that it unfairly prejudices juries against black artists and essentially criminalizes artistic expression and creativity. The fact that Bortland's plea deal potentially validates some aspects of the prosecution's theories makes it even more likely that Melly's lyrics will be admitted as evidence in his upcoming retrial. The financial devastation caused by this prolonged legal battle is staggering when you consider the full scope of its impact. Melly has been held without bond in Broward County Jail since his arrest, which represents over 2,300 days in custody by mid-2025. The astronomical cost of his legal defense, combined with all the income he has lost from being unable to tour, record new music, or promote his existing catalog, represents millions of dollars in financial damage and lost opportunities. Meanwhile, the families of the victims continue their pursuit of justice and closure after more than 6 years of waiting. Christopher Christopher Thomas Sr., father of victim Christopher Thomas Jr., has stated publicly that he believed financial disputes played a significant role in the murders. According to his account, the group was in the process of negotiating a deal to sell the YNW brand, with Sack Chaser supposed to receive $200,000 and Juvie $100,000. But arguments erupted between Sack Chaser and Melly over how the money would be distributed and controlled. The psychological toll on everyone involved in this case cannot be overlooked or minimized. Melly has spent over 6 years of his life locked up without a conviction, during what should have been the prime developmental years of his career and personal life. His mother has publicly criticized his former legal team for poor communication and inadequate representation, and the constant delays and legal maneuvering have created a situation where resolution always seems to be just beyond reach. For Bortland, accepting this plea deal represented a calculated gamble that trading his reputation and immediate freedom for a shorter sentence was worth avoiding the risk of spending the rest of his natural life in prison. But the cost of this decision has been enormous and multifaceted. He has been permanently labeled as a snitch by much of the hip-hop community. His own music career is effectively over for the next decade, and his relationship with his former friend and collaborator has been irreparably destroyed. This case raises fundamental questions about how the criminal justice system handles high-profile cases involving young black men from disadvantaged communities. The extensive delays, the use of rap lyrics as evidence, the pressure applied to defendants to cooperate against co-defendants, all of these factors contribute to a system that many critics argue is structurally designed to work against defendants like Melly and Bortland from the very beginning. Looking ahead to Melly's retrial, now scheduled for January 2027, it's abundantly clear that Bortland's plea deal has fundamentally altered the landscape of the case in ways that may be impossible to overcome. The prosecution now has validation of their core theory, potentially detailed insider information about the events in question, and a powerful narrative of cooperation that they can leverage to pressure other potential witnesses. For Melly and his legal team, the road ahead has become significantly more challenging and treacherous. They will need to develop entirely new strategies to counter the prosecution's now strengthened case, while simultaneously dealing with the psychological and strategic impact of knowing that his former partner has provided detailed information to the same prosecutors who are trying to put him away for life. The hip-hop community continues to wrestle with the deeper implications of what this case represents for the culture as a whole. Is Bortland a snitch who violated the most fundamental principles of street code, or is he a victim of a system that is deliberately designed to pit co-defendants against each other? Is Melly a talented artist who got caught up in circumstances beyond his control, or is he someone who needs to be held fully accountable for his alleged actions? These questions don't have simple or easy answers, but one thing remains absolutely certain. YNW Bortland's plea deal has changed everything about this case, and its effects will continue to reverberate throughout the hip-hop community for years to come. Whether justice ultimately gets served for the victims, for Melly, for Bortland, and for all the families affected by this tragedy remains an open question that will only be answered when this long legal saga finally reaches its conclusion. The story of YNW Melly and YNW Bortland serves as a powerful cautionary tale about fame, friendship, loyalty, and the devastating consequences that can occur when all of these elements collide with the harsh realities of the criminal justice system. As we continue to wait for the next chapter in this ongoing legal drama, one fundamental truth remains clear. In the world of hip-hop, loyalty and survival don't always align, and sometimes the price of freedom is higher than anyone could have ever imagined. Love this video? Click on the cards on your screen for more.